Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having you or the audience to our new meeting of Jewish Italy around the world. Ufarasta Yamava Kedma Vetsafona Vanegba, that is focused about the treasures of the Italian Jewish communities around the world. And this evening I have the pleasure of having with us, that is part also of the net of the Jewish Museum, the Umberto Nahon Museum in Jerusalem. We really appreciate the chance of having them, regardless the situation of the world that they're living also right now, and that could be the possibility that we have an alarm during this meeting, and in this situation we will see what to do. And I really, at the name of all the director of the Jewish Museum, that they are with us this evening, connecting and with the will of sending you of all our really appreciate a lot of having you this evening with us, and we really appreciate this occasion of also express our solidarity to your situation. We have this evening speaking the Umberto Nahon Museum of Italian Jewish Art, and we have no less than three guests with us that are, in order, Leah Felber Nahon, the daughter of Umberto Nahon, the founders of the Jewish Museum of Italian Art in Jerusalem, and David Cassuto, the professor David Cassuto, that was previous not the how do you say, not the mayor, but the one of the important help mayor of the Jerusalem during the 18 years. And together with them, we have the director, Daniel Neve, of the Jewish Museum of Italian Art, Umberto Nahon, and all of them, of course, are our friends in the several occasions and projects that we are having here in Italy. And there is a new exhibition also in the museum that we speak about, Daniel Neve, that is also in connection with an experience made in Venice, Jewish Venezia. And I really want to give the floor right now to the first guest, that is Leah Nahon, that will speak about the origin of the Jewish Museum in Jerusalem. Thank you, Leah, for being together with us this evening, and please send your greetings to our audience.
Thank you.
Please, you have...
Yeah. Good evening to everyone present at this meeting. My name is Leah Nahon Felber, and I am excited and happy to have the opportunity to meet you and introduce myself and to share with you the story of the birth of our Umberto Nahon Museum in Jerusalem. I am the daughter of Umberto Nahon, Zechrono Livracha, founder and creator of the collection of objects that today constitute the museum. My father was born in Livorno in 1905 and died in Jerusalem in 1974. He was always deeply connected to the Livornese Jewish tradition and to Italian Jewish tradition in general. In 1939, after the racial laws in Italy, he and his family made Aliyah from Milan. My father believed that it was right, perhaps even better, to try to gather from the communities objects of Jewish ritual use and bring them to Israel so that they could be saved from the communities in Italy that were then recovering from the shock of the World War. Only here in Israel could they be presented, appreciated, and above all, used by Italian Jews, and not only them, who were here in Jerusalem and longed to reconnect with the family and community objects they had left many years earlier, from which the separation had been painful. This is when the project of identifying and collecting throughout Italy the objects that now form the basis of our museum began. For example, Beta Knesset of Conegliano Veneto from 1701 that was closed since 1918, a community that is now extinct. In 1952, the synagogue and its furniture were transported in crates and would certainly have been destroyed by the passage of time. And so, in the years that followed, sometimes in rather adventurous circumstances, about 40 holy arks and the complete Batei Knesset were transported to Israel. Most of them were intended to remain in use, as it was Umberto Nahon's intention, not to create only museums, but to bring the furnishing back to life, surrounded by communities of Italians who would revive the Italian and Roman rite here in the land of Israel. This was the beginning of our temple in Jerusalem and also the beginning of the museum. The main thing to remember is that behind this project, there was the great foresight, not only of Umberto Nahon, but above all of several patrons and inspired supporters whose great and generous support alone made it possible to realize this dream and project. First and foremost, the Meyer family, led by those exceptional people, Sally Meyer and Astore Meyer, and then the Shapira family and Federico Luzzatto. The Association Chevrat Yehudei Italia Lepa'ula Ruchanit was created, and in the year 2014, for administrative reasons, two twin, parallel, and independent associations were formed, the Chevra and the Museum. The museum was recognized, and today it is recognized by the museum authorities and by governmental institutions, by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Culture, as an important museum and as is defined as a pearl of Jerusalem. Here, important to religious and institutional personalities are received, both Israel and Italian, as well as international figures. I could continue at length, but now I will give the floor to my friend, the architect, Professor David Cassuto, who, after the passing away of my late father, Umberto Nahon, assumed responsibility for this very important project, and for more than 30 years served as president of the museum, bringing it to a level of great value and prestige. To this day, it remains a jewel and represents Italian Jewry in Israel.
Thank you, Leah. And
You,
her son, David Felder, is right now the president of the Jewish Museum in Umberto Nahon. And therefore, the legacy is continuing giving its fruits. To David, we are giving the floor right now. David Cassuto, I mean.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to mention once again.
Just a word. For the people who want to hear the translation in English, they have the channel downstairs Interpretariato, because always we are speaking in English and now we are speaking in Italian. That is well, it's fair. But the people who want to hear it in English to Interpretariato, they have to switch to the English. Thank you. Sorry. Continue, please.
Dear Amedeo, dear Leah, dear all. First of all, I would like to mention once again Astore Meyer and his daughter, Maria Modena Meyer, who from the early 50s to the present day have done extraordinary work, saving more than 40 synagogues, Nota Kodesh, and rare Judaica objects. Most of these were brought to Israel thanks to the work of Umberto Nahon, and in this way they were saved from destruction. I speak of destruction because the synagogues from which these objects came, due to their age, were located in the historic city centers of Italian cities that were in ruins because of the war, and so they were doomed to demolition to make way for new housing complexes built after the Second World War for displaced persons. Mr. Nahon distributed these precious treasures to all the communities in Israel that requested them, making the artistic heritage of Italian Judaism known throughout the country. Among these objects was also a complete synagogue from Conegliano Veneto. You can see the picture of the synagogue as it looked in its original location. And this is how its interior looked. And the original space allowed for a women's gallery on the second floor, as you can see on the image. The synagogue followed the Ashkenazi rite, and the Bima Teva was located in the center, with a small lighting tower above it. Initially, the women's gallery was located behind. The synagogue dates back to 1701, but the Aron seems older. It is dedicated to Rabbi Natan Ottolenghi, image of the dedication, Rabbi of the Shiva of Conegliano, transferred from Venice after the burning of the Talmud in 1553. He must have been a great scholar of the Torah. His writings were rediscovered by the researcher Meir Benayahu, son of the Sephardic chief Rabbi Isaac Nissim. The last time prayers were held in the synagogue was in 1918, when Conegliano was occupied by the Austro-Hungarian army. A group of Jewish soldiers were looking for a place to pray for Pesach. The synagogue was open for them and for their chaplains. When the synagogue was inaugurated, so the name of the chaplain was Ernest Deutsch. He was the one who opened the synagogue that year in 1918. When the synagogue was inaugurated in Israel in the presence of the President Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, an Ashkenazi Jew with a white beard, black coat, and black white brimmed hat stood at the threshold. He was weeping, he was crying. I was just a young boy, a 14-year-old boy, as you can see on this picture. I was a 14-year-old boy at the time, and you can see me next to the president. And I was there and asked, Mr. Nahon, who is that man, that Ashkenazi Jew, crying so deeply and intensely, said, he's Rabbi Haron Dishon. His name was Ernst Deutsch. And he was seeing this synagogue again for the first time in its new location in Jerusalem. The synagogue was brought to Israel in 1952, as already said by Leah, and thanks to the efforts of the then Rabbi of Venice, Elio Toaf, and thanks to two leaders of the Jerusalem community, Menachem Emanuel Hartom and Moshe Cohen Pirani. A suitable room was found for it in a high school in Jerusalem. The school was attended by Leah, Nahon's daughter, later Leah Felber, whom you have heard of. 33 years ago, a Jew named Melech Reis donated a considerable sum of money, which made it possible to build a real upper women's gallery. And this is how the synagogue looks today. Since then, the synagogue has been used again, and today the roles in the community are filled by our children and grandchildren. And it is important to say that the restoration was hugely due to Giuliano Olieto, who dedicated all of his life, especially the last years, to restore this synagogue. Well, here you see the synagogue as it is today. In front of us is the ancient Aron from Mantua, dated 1543 and originally located in the home of Isacco Senigallia in Mantua. Later, when in Mantua, a more striking Aron was built, more suitable for the new location in the palace of Duchess Felicita Gonzaga, now in the yeshiva of Penovich in Bnei Brak. So this one then was transferred, so ours was transferred to Sermide. So on other side of the Aron are two chairs. It seems that they originally belonged to some prince and that the community purchased them from an antique seller to place them next to the Aron. And the names of all the members of the Jewish community of Mantua were engraved on them. It was not easy to decode those inscriptions because when the Aron was transferred to Sermide, the inhabitants of the new community carved the inscriptions to put a plate with the words Vetenta Lumachta. However, with great effort, I still managed to decode those inscriptions. The Aron is a magnificent example of Renaissance style. When the doors are opened, you can see a paraphrase of the Ten Commandments, certainly composed by a talented poet of the time. I could not trace him back, but maybe Amedeo will be able to retrace this poet because really he was a poet of great talent. The Aron in San Daniele del Friuli, the one that we see now, has a unique feature. It is the only one known Aron made by a Jew. Most sacred furnishings were in fact produced by non-Jewish craftsmen. And we can deduce this for two reasons. First, because the author wanted to highlight his name, Netanel, engraved under the lintel above the doors of the Aron. The name Netanel was common in the Luzzatto family, originally from San Daniele. It is therefore assumed that the author was Netanele Luzzatto. The second reason is a certain artisanal naivety visible in the work. The style is that of the 17th century, but the two columns on either side of the door are different in both thickness and design. And this tells us that the craftsman, the maker, was an amateur and not a real professional. The second thing I really want to show you, it's very special. This is this little hand, a Torah pointer. This is a specimen dated 1488. How can we know that? I'm going to tell you straight away. 4 years, well, this is made 4 years before the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. There are no other Judaica objects dated prior to the expulsion from Spain, or almost none. Well, some in Egypt, but very, very few of them. The inscription reads, Baikach Romach Bayado. And so you see Resh Memchet is the date that corresponds to the year 1488. This is a unique object, very appreciated. And then let's have a look at the Haggadah that we call Haggadah Sereni, another very important object. It's a handwritten Haggadah of Pesach dating back to the 15th century, so 1400, with figures reminiscent of the bird face figures in the Haggadah. This is a typical model of medieval Ashkenazi Haggadot. However, this Haggadah belonged to a family in Florence, but was probably made in northern Italy. Umberto Nahon dedicated it to Enzo Sereni, and since then we call it Haggadah Sereni. And so I've finished my speech, and so I give the floor to Danielle.
Danielle, take you the floor, please.
Danielle.
Excuse me. First, I would like to thank Lea Felber-Nahon and Professor Casuto for honoring us with their wisdom and memories, and also Mirela Nissim that is pushing and helping from behind. While Lea and David talked about the past, I would like to address the present and hopefully also the future. In September of 2025, we opened a very special exhibition. It's called Ripples of Venice, a collaboration between our museum and Beit Venezia, a home for Jewish culture headed by Shaul Bassi. A year earlier, when the idea for the exhibition started to take shape, I had the pleasure of traveling to Venice alongside the artist Andy Arnovitz and curator Dvoralis, which you can see in a moment. We had three objectives, our challenges, if you will. First, we had to find a link between several different Beit Venezia projects that were created in different times and by different artists. Second, we had to match the works created with our wonderful collection of Judaica. And third, and this was something that I was very concerned about, we wanted to say something about the situation in Israel since October 7th, all while staying true to the DNA of our museum, which is not an easy thing to do. Before we dive into the exhibition, into everything, I want to take you on a short tour, thanks to a 3D scanning done recently at the museum. We are able to welcome you into the museum even from afar. This is work in progress, but it gives you the ability to see the exhibition as it stands today. So just a minute. I will later explain everything, but I wanted you to see our lovely small museum before we begin and dive in. Just a minute. Here you can see the Mantova Aron Kodesh that David so eloquently spoke about. And you can see. I would just like to add that currently, unfortunately, we are obviously closed to the public as we're not able to open safely. Okay. Now we share. Just a minute. The idea behind the exhibition is that through the lives of Venetian Jews, we can tell the story of the Jewish people as a whole. The subtitle to the exhibition Ripples of Venice is A Jewish Story. Room after room, the works created by artists in Beit Venezia's residencies are presented in conversation with our collection. This conversation benefits both sides. It gives a background and a solid history to the new works, as well as new interpretation and relevance to the objects kept in the collection. I would like to offer some examples and use it as an opportunity to expose a few more of our treasures. The first Bet Venezia project was called Living Underwater. It brought 5 artists from all over the world to Venice to learn about its battle with climate change, but with a Jewish perspective in mind. Water plays a crucial part here, and naturally the artists were drawn towards the stories of Noah and Jonah. In both, there is a sin and a punishment by destruction. In both, water plays a major part of the story. As in many religions, Judaism attributes water to purity and life itself. However, it also acknowledges that too much water may be destructive. Here are 2 objects that represent this idea: the water jug and basin for Natilat Yadayim, and the Talu Matar plaque. One representing the idea of water as purifying force, the other, the need for rain to fall only in certain times of the year to prevent the loss of grain and other produce. When those are presented alongside contemporary works asking questions about our responsibility towards the environment, we suddenly realize how much of it already exists within our Jewish culture. For example, this work by Ken Goldman, which quotes the book of Jonah and calls us to wake up, be it for environment, our society, or justice. Another project took inspiration from the famous Venice Agada, the first printed Agada in the world, of which the museum holds several original copies, including a 1609 edition. 4 artists created their version of a Venetian Agada, taking inspiration from all sorts of sources. Just as the Venice Agada is a window to the lives of 17th century Venetian Jews, the new Agada has its own story to tell, with contemporary concepts and interpretations. And here you can see several examples from the new Venice Agada, and of course, pages and close-ups from the original Venice Agada. The third project transformed the Book of Esther into a deck of playing cards. Each artist created 1 suit of cards, giving new interpretations to the story while incorporating the visual language of Venice. When you think of it, the story of Purim is a bit like a card game. You take a chance, you bluff, and you keep your cards close to your chest until the moment of truth, when all cards are revealed. One thing is missing from the Book of Esther, and that is the name of God. In order to honor God, Jews created Esther scrolls, where each and every column starts with the word Hamelech, the king. The repetition meant to remind the reader of God's constant presence. Jacqueline Nichols, the leading artist of this project, honored God by turning the letter Hey, representing the Lord, into the card of the Joker, the most powerful card of all, one that can change the entire game. Our Esther scrolls demonstrate a different approach. Illustrations accompany the text and enrich it. And this is also an example of a Hamelech scroll, Esther scroll. Back to Exodus, to the story of Exodus. With this sukkah panel, one of 4, the gift of the Sulam family. It shows the drowning of Pharaoh's army in the Red Sea. The army might be Pharaoh's, but their uniforms are European. The landscape, that of Venice. It is clear that the artist may have had only a vague idea of the landscape of Egypt and its flora, specifically the palm tree here, like so many other European artists at the time. The scene is especially important in Italian Jewry, as I'm sure you all know, as it's the inspiration to the famous pasta dish served on Shabbat B'Shalach. When artist Andy Arnovitz was invited alongside an Italian chef to recreate the Italian Jewish cookbook, La Cucina Ebraica, one illustrated riding his chariot while holding the dish depicting his army's demise. One work evokes the national memory, the other, the legacy that was created about it. Finally, we come to the end. If thus far we spoke of the cards dealt to us, the way we play them, and of the responsibility we have for our lives, the final room speaks about two truths no one can avoid. We are born and we will die. And even here, we offer some perspective. Birth is honored by our wonderful collection of Shaddai amulets, and death by Hadassah Goldvich's stunning videos. Above them, part of our permanent display, are the eternal words, "Know before whom thy stand." Together, they signify the care and attention we dedicate to the beginning and end of our lives. We offer protection and an opportunity for a later return in face of the uncertain adventure that is life, Jewish or otherwise. And if I may, one more note. We came to understand that the Jewish story is like that of Venice, ups and downs, highs and lows, seclusion and vast connections with the outside world. Things may not be easy for the Jewish people right now, but must get better sooner or later. Like Venice, that still stands, so are we. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan. Perhaps the son of Leah wanted to add something as a president of the Jewish Museum, Nahon. I see that he is together with us. So, David, do you want to speak or to give greetings from Jerusalem to our audience? I see that you were here together with us. Or perhaps I don't know if he is still together, but I don't see he anymore. Therefore, okay, that's fine. We have a question to David Cassuto from the Marcella
Thank you. I'm
Ansaldi.
here. Sorry.
Okay, you are
couldn't
here.
unmute myself. Sorry.
Okay.
As you said, I'm David, and I'm Leah's eldest son. I'm the grandson of Umberto Nahon, late Umberto Nahon, and now I'm at the moment I am kind of a chairman or president, as if I was mentioned. I'm very happy to be here with you this evening. Although it's not very good times in Israel now, but to see all this audience interested in what's happening in Israel is very warm for us. And I thank you all for attending this meeting. And I invite you all לשנה הבאה בירושלים הבנויה, next year in rebuilt Jerusalem. Come to visit and see the museum, and either from there or from Jerusalem itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, so much. Now, Marcella Ansaldi asked something for David Cassuto. So I would like, if Marcella is online still, to give her the floor and to ask directly to the Professor Cassuto her question. Marcella. Eccola.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for this wonderful meeting. In spite of all the difficulties you have all our solidarity. I'd like to ask something to Professor Cassuto. You really made very interesting contribution. So in Venice, in our museum, allow me to say we have an ugly Arona Kodesh, and legend says that it comes from Conigliano. Well, we have a few ritual objects from Conigliano Veneto. Well, not everything went to Jerusalem. For instance, many books did not make it until Jerusalem. but I think these Aron came to us around the 50s, 60s. Do you know anything about that, Aron? Where is it exactly? Where is it today? Where is it? It is in our depot, in our warehouse. In our warehouse. It's not display. It's not on display. Well, it was displayed in the fabric room some time ago. Maybe you saw it on display because I visited the fabric room several times, but honestly, I don't remember it. I did not notice it, and seems to me weird that that comes from Conegliano. However, if you can send me a picture of it and ask Amedeo to send it to me, maybe I'll get a better understanding. Oh yes, of course, I can send it to you directly. Yes, of course, I will. Thank you. That's perfect. I know your email. Yes.
Marcella, you mentioned also the family name of Zamato. You wanted.
You mentioned the Zamato family. Yes, the Zamato family attended the Italian synagogue regularly around the end of 1800s, but then it disappeared. What was the name? Zamatio.
The family name is Zamato, and the well-known chief rabbi of Padua for a long decades was Alessandro Zamato, and was a pupil of the Shaddal, for the Samuel David Luzzatto. He studied at the rabbinical college in Padua. But besides this, the Zamat was wrote. The Zamat family was spread out in Venice and in Padua as well.
Yes. Today, there are many non-Jewish families in Venice called Zamatio.
Anyway, there is another question addressed to Daniel. Daniel Hood, Steve Siporin. I think that we can open the microphone of Steve if he wants to address the question directly to Daniel. If not, Daniel can answer directly because it's written there in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Stephen. We have Steve.
Thank you. Thank you. I saw in maybe one of the last examples of the modern art in the exhibit, someone in the air holding a plate above the flooding, the Dead Sea scene, or the chariots in the Red Sea everyone being drowned. Anyway, it looked to me like it was a plate with a pasta dish in it, and I know that there's this famous dish that depicts the drowning in the Red Sea. And in Venice, it's got a special name that's very curious, Frizzensal, which no one has been able to explain as far as I know. And something like it is eaten elsewhere in Italy called Rota de Faraone, something like that. I don't know if people still practice this, but anything you can say about this, I'd be delighted to hear.
So first of all, I did mention that the work you spotted, created by artist Andy Arnovitz, is an illustration that was made for a reinvention of the Jewish Italian cookbook called La cucina alla tradizione ebraica. The book itself tried to replace all sorts of ingredients. It was related to the Living Underwater, the climate change project, and was meant to find substitutes for all sorts of ingredients for the Jewish cookbook. Putting this aside, the dish that you refer to has several names: pasta di Shabbat beshalach, rota di faraon, all sorts. And it is eaten, as far as I know, by several communities, especially in northern Italy. My family originally comes from Ferrara. I have also a small Venetian branch, and we still practice it today. And I'm trying to sell it to every Italian-loving Jew that I can find. And I have proof, I have pictures if you want to see. But it's still very much practiced. There is debate whether it should be meatballs or slices of salame, of course, kosher one, of course, but still something that we do every year with pleasure.
Great, thank you.
I hadn't this tradition, but I introduced it very, very fair in our family, because it's important to keep the traditions, even if in Roma we never have this tradition of having the ruota del faraone on Shabbat Beshalach. But it's a pleasure to have, also because in some communities is such a losange is like fettuccine, and therefore is a fettuccine with uva passa inside that are like the Egyptians that are on the sea. And I introduced it also in my family. And here in our museum in Ferrara, we speak a lot about the Shabbat Beshalach dishes. That is the word of Pharaoh. Now I am seeing that our student of our courses in Ferrara, that I don't remember, sorry, I don't remember his name, but he's called Antonia right now, wanted to speak and to tell something perhaps about Conegliano, I suppose. Therefore, I ask the organization to give him the voice. Wait, David. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
La ruota di Faraone was also made in Flores and Livorno. Yes, it was a ritual, a habit, a tradition, with Zibibi orders small pieces of salami. Yes, as the Egyptians drowning in the pharaoh's wheel. And that's what I remember. And some people also ask me about a book about Italian Jewish cuisine. One was written by Ada Servi, who lives in the US today, not in Italy, and Gaio Shiloni wrote another book. He was a well-known translator, but he also published a book about Italian Jewish cuisine.
Yes, you have now the voice. Please speak.
Amedeo, è scritto Antonio, ma sono Andrea da Cene, da Vittorio Veneto.
Sì, certo.
Volevo chiedere, come ben sai e ben sicuramente Cazzuto lo sa, la sinagoga di Cene è trasferita al Museo Israele. E visto che noi facciamo appunto questi lavori di presentazione, come mai non è stata più usata la sinagoga?
Non ho capito la domanda.
Allora, se capisco bene, I try to understand his question. First of all, he's speaking about the Ceneda synagogue. It means Vittorio Veneto synagogue. As you know, Vittorio Veneto is the unification of two villages, Ceneda and Serravalle, and therefore he's speaking about the Ceneda synagogue, that he means the Vittorio Veneto synagogues, and he's asking why the synagogue of Vittorio Veneto, placed now in the Israel Museum, is not used anymore for services.
The Vittorio Veneto Synagogue is called the twin of the one of Conegliano, had been made with much more care from a style point of view. The Conegliano one was more natural. The one from Vittorio Veneto, from Ceneda, is an example of something that was carefully designed according to all the main rules of Baroque architecture. and there is a lot of difference between the two. My question is, why isn't it used? You mean the Vittorio Veneto Synagogue? Why it is not used? Well, Umberto Nahon, when decided to move the synagogue there, he posed a condition. It should be used every Saturday. The director of the museum at that time said, yes, that will be the case. But then it was not the case. It never happened because you should open such a huge museum to just let enter 10 people to pray in the synagogue. So it's practically impossible. Well, thanks for these good news that we will pass on when we make visits here locally in Vittorio Veneto. The same happened to the synagogue that today is in the Heritage Israel Museum in Tel Aviv. It was a synagogue from Piedmont region, and again, the condition was to use it for prayers every Saturday. And well, it was placed in an area of the museum that was accessible also from the outside, but well, that never happened. It's not easy at all when a synagogue is distant from, the houses of the people that should use it. People then do not go there. That's as simple as this. I mean, and I don't remember uh, the name of another example. Trino Vercellese. That's another example. I mean, well, it's not accessible from the outside. So if you put a synagogue inside a museum, well, that means automatically shutting it down. So it's then impossible for the public to go in and pray and use it for prayers.
Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, David. I don't see any other questions. And there is Pia Settimi that tell us about the Conian family name, Conegliano, that we know very well. And this also science that is present right now also in the Jewish community of Padua, and also with the presence of the well-known Emanuele Conegliano, that was the writer of Mozart.
Well, the Conegliano Synagogue, this is something I didn't say during my presentation, had been brought by Elio Toaf and the Meyer family, and Federico Luzzato, of course. He was the one who practically, made it possible. Lea also mentioned him. In the beginning, I was a young boy, but at the time, the Rat Nashim had been put into cages on the sides of the entrance of the synagogue. It was horrible. I mean, it could just welcome 25 women. And when Melech Hash gave us the opportunity to build a proper women's gallery to pay homage to the women of his family that died during the Second World War, well, then everything changed. And today, in the Jerusalem Women's Gallery, you can have until 70 women and 70 men can be hosted on the ground floor. But we could not do as in Venice because there, well, women were not that tall. Instead, we have 2 meters and 20, both for men and women. So the Agbaha was not possible in the elevation of the Sefer. So we decided to leave the Tava in the middle as originally planned in the original setting of the Corneliano synagogue. But something else should be said. This very special synagogue in Jerusalem is visited by classes. And when they hold the Torah in their hands, they all get it in the Beta Knesset of Corneliano Veneto. This is very important because I see youngsters saying, "Oh, I got the Torah in the Corneliano Veneto synagogue." For them, this is exceptional, and that says a lot. That says that so many, experience this synagogue that is really unique in Jerusalem and very important to everybody.
Thank you so much, David, for this interesting story and the connection between the children of Jerusalem with our Italian synagogue there in Jerusalem. There is somebody who is asking, I suppose, to Daniel or to David, if in the Jewish Museum in Jerusalem are there objects coming from Moncalvo synagogue that is in Piedmont.
Yes, there are actually. There
Please,
are decorations. There are decorations from the ceiling and walls of Moncalvo. I believe there is I think there is also a Torah ark, but it's not in the museum, but it's in Israel, if I'm not mistaken. But we have several pieces of decoration mainly from the ceiling and alcoves of the synagogue.
So it's a good reason for the interested people to come in Jerusalem to visit the museum and to have a view of the object coming from the Moncalvo synagogue. I don't see any
Amadeo?
other please, Daniel.
I think that Mirella wanted to ask something. She wrote me.
Of course, I didn't know. Mirella, please open your microphone.
I would like to make a clarification as to the Ruota del Faraone. The Israeli TV sent a group to our museum close to the Sukkah panel, and I made tagliatelle with my niece. We were asked many questions, and it was then aired on television. We also gave the recipe. I see a question on the chat. We know that Israel is going through hard times. Can the museum continue its activities? Are there emergency plans? So what I can say is this. From well, the museum remains important even if it can't be open. I am part of the board and we still deal with the museum. But this is also a distraction from our daily concerns. The second thing I want to say is that patrons of the arts have been mentioned. Thanks to them, it was possible to establish the museum. Well, even today, patrons of the heart with a big heart would be more than welcome in order to support us because we need somehow to just resist. And I just want to say something very, very personal, but you will understand why I want to say this. A nephew of mine, the son of my brother, during his last holiday before the war of October the 7th, had brought his 4 kids to visit the museum, and I was there too, so they could see what culture is, what is the Italian beta Knesset, so that they could touch objects, see them from close, because we really want to hand over the Italian tradition to the new generations. And Raphael made the visit. Unfortunately, he died during the war. So I want to dedicate my words to him.
Thank you. Thank you, Mirella. We associated to your wheels of dedicating to him this important meeting that we had this evening. And I want to really to express our gratitude for making our meeting regardless the different the problems that you have right now. And we hope that as we hadn't any alarm during this meeting, it could be the hope of the end of any emergency in Israel and everywhere in the world, and that war will end immediately as soon as possible, and to have a peace in the area and for everybody, for every people living there in the territories. Thank you so much, and I hope that as we could very, very soon have meetings and journeys there in Israel, you as well, we will visit our museums and our Jewish communities, your heritage, your roots here in Italy as soon as possible. And so thank you for being with us this evening on the name of all the director and all the staff of the Jewish Museum in Italy. And thank you. Thank you. That's it. Grazie Davide, grazie Daniel, grazie Mirella. Mirella ha fatto tantissimo.
Daniel,
Mirella ha
thank you,
fatto
David.
tantissimo.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Mirella. Thank you all. And thank you for, and Mirella really made so much to make this session possible. So all my gratitude to all of you. I also want to thank the Iranians who did not bomb us today, so we could have this wonderful work conversation without having to rush into a shelter. Amedeo, do you want to remind us the next conference, the next meeting?
Yes, but I want to explain. Okay, I see. Sorry, allora, I want to remind to everybody that the next appointment and meeting will be with Greece, if I don't. And yes, but which is the date? Raquel, I don't find the date of the next one.
16 aprile alle
Okay,
18.
on April 16, we will have the next meeting with the Jewish Museum of Athens, Greece. So see you, and meanwhile, have a good Passover, good Easter to everybody. Thank you for